It was my home, and it was brilliant. I had brothers and sisters, and we had a great time.
I was well reared in goat's milk, and then I always had a wee kid for Eoghan at all.
You said looking back you had a happy childhood, but I didn't really think about that at the time.
There was no, what would you say, Protestant or Catholic. We just mixed, just done what we had to do,
So where would you have been? Towards the North Queen Street?
All I can remember is we lived in a corner, a corner house with a lamp outside it.
And that would all shine through?
Yeah, facing was Gallagher's Green Gate, they call it.
This is sort of the map. So there's a Moyle River, one of the best salmon fishing rivers there are.
Yeah, there was an out of used to fish for salmon. And caught quite a lot.
And the old Forge Town Bridge, that was by your house?
Yep.
Yeah. So your farm was all around here? Sort of in there?
Those things all stick in my head, the lamppost outside, and the kids would get ropes and tie it around it. If the rope wasn't really properly tied, you bumped your head on the
on the lamppost?
Yeah.
Whitewash wall, milking cows by hand, turf fires, warm, rough fields, mocking cows. Is that pretty much it? You had two sisters, Eileen and Tilly. One was polite and posh, the other was rough and red.
She didn't want people pointing the finger. And the other one, her attitude was, you don't like it, you can lump it.
Lots of things I could do now that lots of people couldn't, that they couldn't go through it, all the heating and everything. We had no heating and all that time. And we just had to have our tea in the morning. We prime the stove sometimes. Sometimes my mother would have to make our breakfast on that.
My father died when we were quite young, and my mother, we all worked together. Everything that I needed to be done at the time. I milked cows, I drove things, I took pigs here, I did everything.
When you went in the door, there was always a wee hall, and then there was something there with a bucket of water, because they had to go for their water from the well. So.
And you had to wash dishes, clean out the kettle, prepare lunches all before going to school.
I wasn't the only one. Every child had to do that.
There's a lot to be done on the farm. I liked sweets, but we wouldn't have had them every day. There were 6 of us in our family, and we would only get them maybe on a Friday. My mother would have gone to the shop, so whatever sweets you would have had to have done you for the rest of the week.
Yep.
I had a love for it because I knew all the people who had stayed in it. So I wandered down from my job, my post office, one day when it was finished, and I wandered down round, and the men were putting them down, and spoke to me just naturally, and I said, I'm looking round here, I knew every one of these wee houses. I'm so sad to see them being knocked down.
A photographer came to school, and my brother had red hair. And he said, what happened to you son? Did you stand out in the rain and your hair grew this way? So we called him Musty.
So, school. Now this is Lyle Hill School.
Oh yes.
That's the school.
And I think I'm in that.
I quite liked school, apart from the schoolwork. No, I really did like school, with 2 very nice teachers. I suppose that was part of it.
I was never in school, to be honest with you. As soon as I got into school, the caretaker said to me, go along the shore road to a shop, Dennis's, and I would get the paper, and then go back up again, and then in the afternoon, he would come and get me for the stoke the boiler with coconut, and then supply me with wee small bottles of milk.
He was the headmaster. He either didn't like me or he didn't like girls. And you didn't like smarty asses. And I was one of those.
At school, I was such a nice girl. I closed the teacher in the room one day and locked the door. I laughed for a week. It was a visiting teacher. That was the worst part of it. He wouldn't have known the idiocy that would be in the classroom sometimes.
Tests. That sounds a bit weird, but yeah, it was tests. I liked beating everybody else.
And quite like geography and history.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about that you quite liked?
I don't know. I felt I was learning something.
About the world?
Probably.
It was always a master, headmaster and his wife, or Mr. and Mrs. Milne, they ran the school. And they wanted to keep the numbers up in school. So they would they would take me in very young. So I could have been maybe just left 3, maybe into 4 years.
I don't know what it was, but I suppose it was a time when I had to go to school. I had a dummy, as they call it. No mama shouldn't have done it, but she used to fill it up with sugar, and that was me. I was happy.
We walked 3 miles there and 3 miles back.
And walked to school. I wasn't taken to school with my mother too. In those days, you just set off, and that was it.
You'd walk 2.5, 3 miles every day to go to school.
Yeah.
Hughes's Academy in Belfast, and it was a man, Eoghan, he did that school. Shorthand, typing and bookkeeping.
Look what I found. Results from Hughes's Academy, permanent civil service post for girls over 18 years of age, women clerkship 18 to 20, and these are some of the results. Government typists 18 to 30. So this is an advertisement for Hughes's Academy, 82 Royal Avenue, Belfast.
Yeah, obviously. And I went up those wee stairs, up the stairs there. So you got that. Money was scarce, but my mother always wanted to make as much of us as possible. So she sent me to that school, and I did all those 3. And also did English, which I was very proud of.
So university, this is maybe how you would have remembered it then at that stage.
Mm-hmm. You could pick and choose what you studied and when. At school you couldn't do that.
Fascinated by personalities. There's some awful people, and I thought if I were to get a piece of paper to say that I'm qualified, I'm going to name them.
Mr. Eoghan, he came out to Malusk to live in his older days. And I said to him one day, you don't know me now, Mr. Eoghan, but you taught me. And he was so delighted. And I could count a tot the length of your arm without breaking it up. So, you know, I was taught very well.
She was nice and kind, and my father had died when we were quite small, so she brought us up on her own.
You talked there about your mother and the workers' strike. The people never forgot her.
She worked very hard, and she had to do jobs really to keep the money up in the house too. She would have done jobs for people and baking and doing things for them. But at that time, the workers' strike, she baked for lots of young mothers, but she didn't take any money or anything of them, no. They still remembered it when they met her before she died. They used to say, Mrs. Armstrong, we remember you.
Talking about your mother, Elizabeth, and there's the Midland Hotel.
Went over to the Midland Hotel, the railway thing, and my mummy worked there, and she, you know, I mean, 3 jobs she done, and all, but me and my brother, Dad would sit there and wait for her.
Leftover food, she was able to
Yeah.
bring it back. She had 3 jobs,
yeah.
but would have brought back food.
She was absolutely marvellous. She She had to do everything else. Anything we couldn't do, anything the children couldn't do, she would do. She worked, I suppose, probably like a man, but she was no man, believe you me.
She was quite the lady.
She was a lady.
Yeah, your mother had was a strong, hard worker farmer who could do anything. She made her own bread and butter.
She did indeed,
She baked.
and everything else as well.
And she couldn't. She didn't have anyone to come in and help her on the farm, and she couldn't afford it in any case.
No, she could not.
No.
When I was in church, my teacher had said to me, when you grow up, when you get a bit older, Jean, what are you going to work at? And I said, I would like to work in a post office.
They're joining in the Mackies. They lifted you over a full bucket of metal and a couple of inches off the ground. If my snake belt had busted, first job, dead.
A good time after that, a friend of hers needed somebody in Woodvale, and I started my first job in Woodvale. I was about 19 then.
I got a lot of private work. I got a lot of work with the police authority and people who didn't want to discuss their business with other people, and I loved it because it made me different.
I did training in a couple of different places. I did. I went to England and did most of my nursing in Leeds, Bradford, in that particular area.
I moved to Mackey's, and that's when my accident happened.
After I did general training, I did military training, which was another year, and in Leeds, and I practiced on the community, and that was it. That was my life.
Nobody would take me on, with having a bad leg.
Girls like us were always running the post office because they took on postmasters, but they had no idea. They got 2 weeks training, which wouldn't have covered much. Everything was left to you. So I learned the hard way.
Oh, do I remember that as long as I live. I went in to deliver his baby, his wife's baby, who was having the baby. And he was lying there looking at me. I said, do you mind we'll do this? I says, it's a wee bit sort of. He said, looked at me. I lifted my foot and gave him a push and landed right on the nose. I can't put up with men being not doing as they're told.
They had been retired inspectors and, in the post office, and very well trained men. I learned a lot from them. Dad and Uncle, I used to call them. And they were so good to me. My wages weren't very big. And one of them, Mr. McCulloch, went and asked the sub-PM in the bed, would you give a rise in pay to Jean? I think it's about time. She said no. So she turned it down, and he paid it himself.
I had quite a lot, I know. I never for 1 minute kept count. I'm sorry, I just didn't. I didn't think it was important as far as I was concerned. All I wanted was to deliver babies and get them safely into the world for their mother and father.
My sister had it, and then she gave it up, and so that it was taken. And at that time, I was in my late 50s, and I didn't really want. I was more or less ready for retirement. So, but I thought, well, it wouldn't be too bad to do that job and end up that way. So I did. I applied for it. It took me on immediately because they knew me. and said, well, we'll not have to send anybody out to train, you know, and all, and you'll be very suitable. So that's how I got my last post off. And I did it for 13 years until I retired on the 70.
It's the end of air for Jean McBride today, Thursday, as she retires from a lost post office after serving 13 years as sub-postmistress.
Yeah, now,
And so
Jean
there
leaves.
outside.
Jean leaves her post.
Jean leaves her post. That took me a long
See,
time to find that.
it was
but I
in the
found it.
paper.
Oh, it has lots of ups and downs, it has indeed. But most of them you can cope with. Well, most of them I did cope with, so.
So this is Leeds General Infirmary.
It is, oh, for dear's sake.
Is that how you remember it?
That is how I remember it.
It's a very interesting job, and I will miss being away from the people. In this profession, you get to meet almost everyone in the district. Whether it's someone coming and asking for directions or someone with their pension book, I get to meet them. Yeah? Is that lovely?